Hero Recharging with Charlotte, where I tell some fun shenanigans from either my work or personal life because there's lots of shenanigans. And today we're going to talk about some mortgage shenanigans. I often say that as mortgage loan officers and realtors could write a book with some of the crazy things that we have come across in our history. And I have heard some stories this week. I actually just got back from a really cool event with 1,000 amazing realtors. And some of the stories they shared, I think I should have them come on and tell the crazy shenanigan stories of real estate on this as well. So maybe when I run out of stories, we'll have them on tell some of the crazy stories. Tanya, if you're looking, you know I'm talking about your story. You know I'm talking about your story. So today, we're going to talk about mortgage and some of the crazy shenanigans that I have seen in my 20 plus years in this mortgage industry that were specific to husband and wife, or maybe ex-husband and wife. We've definitely seen those. So there are a couple of hot topics that as loan officers, any loan officers out there watching, you can empathize with this. We kind of do this when it comes to the closing, right? So at closing, there are a couple of documents that can bring up emotions in our married couples. And here are a couple of situations where this happened. There is one particular document that we often have to get signed. It's called a name affidavit. And all it literally is an affidavit that pulls all the credit, all the names that have been on your credit profile, right? So anything that you've been called in the past, it puts it on this form and says, hey, this is me. Once I went by Charlotte Kelsey, now I'm Charlotte Harrell, right? So this sometimes can get really tricky when, I don't know, maybe we're going to call John Doe and Jane Smith, or Jane Doe, John Doe and Jane Doe. They're sitting at the closing table. This literally happened. They're sitting at the closing table, and John Doe looks over and says, what is that name? Didn't know about a last name. And you just kind of see her taken aback. Come to find out, that was a previous marriage that she had failed to tell him about. So at the closing table, when it comes to that name affidavit, when we have people that haven't disclosed to their spouse that maybe there was a previous marriage that they didn't want to tell them about, they changed their name, it might just pop up on that affidavit and cause some tension. Now, granted, that actually didn't come out at the closing table in this one scenario. I immediately realized that she was acting kind of funny. Like, I'm looking over at my title companies like, that was an interesting reaction, right? Ha ha ha. Just somebody just put that on your credit bureau. Well, this client actually called me like 3 days after closing. She was by herself and she's like, so Charlotte, I have to tell you. And she admitted that she had not told her husband that when she was like 18 years old, she was young. She had got married and was married for like a year. I think she was like in her 30s now at this point. So this is long history, right? But she had not disclosed to her now husband that when she was young, she had been married. And it all came out at the closing table because of the little baby name affidavit that they had to sign. So that is one situation that I have seen. And I'm sure other loan officers, you've probably seen a similar situation. The other tricky spot in the mortgage application that we see as loan officers a lot. And in my 20 years, I have probably seen this conversation pop up at some point at least 15, maybe 20 times. So I'm going to give you the normal story when it pops up. And then because we're talking about closing table stories, I'll tell you about the time that it happened at the closing table. So yeah, right? Absolutely. We're not going to talk about how long my name affidavit is between spelling it wrong and maybe my last name's changing a few times, right? I feel you, Tanya. But luckily, I fully disclosed that to all of my parties. They know that I was a Cavler once before and a Kelsey. They know. Anyway, so the other situation where this pops up is on the debts. So when you fill out an application, we import all of the debts that are listed on the credit bureau onto the joint application. So if you're married, it's a joint application. And some people look at it, right? Some people look at everything that is sent over from your mortgage professional. Some people skim right over it. But in that debt, it's got every liability, every credit card balance. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. and every monthly payment. So as you can imagine, very regularly we we have had the conversation. It's really awkward when we're there for the conversation. And sure enough, one of the people in the relationship has no idea that there's debt racked up. They have no idea what this credit card is. And sometimes it can be quite nefarious. I had one situation to where they didn't end up getting a loan because these debts came up in a conversation, which led to some investigation, which led to some infidelity, and the marriage split before the mortgage could ever come together, which we're glad, right? Thank goodness they didn't go buy a house together when there was infidelity and credit cards being racked up on the back end. That's bad. But this happens more often when we just have a shopper. Somebody that likes to go out and maybe spend a little bit money and then they're supposed to spend. There you have it. So this happens pretty regularly. However, I did have this one situation where the woman knew, and she had actually disclosed to me that she knew that the husband didn't know about all of her credit card debt. And she was just going to go to that closing and try to cover up. So the most hilarious closing ever was this closing where it came time to sign the document that is the application that lists all of the debts. And here is this wife. About the time that they came out, she spits out some crazy story to completely divert her husband from looking at this thing. She points out something about the house and how crazy it was. And, hey, John, did you see this on this house? And Jane Doe over here is just really making this great story to divert his attention from signing on this line so that he doesn't see the debts. End of the story. He did not see said debts. He didn't see them, which is great. Oh, my phone is ringing. Sorry, guys. Let's make that go quiet. So he didn't see the debts. But fast forward about 6 months, weird. Karma catches up. And sure enough, somehow these debts popped up, maybe in the mailbox. I don't know. I don't know how she got caught. But it was like $30,000 in credit card debt that he did not know about. And lo and behold, it came out, and it was a rough day in the neighborhood for everybody. I believe it was quite an explosive marital situation. So you can imagine this comes up pretty regularly, and debts are a touchy subject. I mean, I think they say that a lot of times marriages fold because of debts or liabilities or money problems. Well, if you're hiding those debts, it can oftentimes lead to that. So that is the second thing that happens more often than you would believe, right? I think it happens pretty stinking regularly. It's pretty crazy how often that happens. So the third thing, we're on with this closing and stories that happened at closing. So one of the things that has happened a few times, but one in particular that was really ugly. Not ugly, it was just awkward. So in a lot